afternoon, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us for the June church conference. I appreciate you carving out time for this very important meeting to get together and to discuss the life and the work of our church at First Baptist. Also, I want to remind everyone at the end of this meeting, we'll have a brief time, approximately 5 minutes after the meeting, to get onto Zoom and answer any questions or concerns you may have from the information that is presented in today's meeting. I'd also like to say a special thank you to Courtney Willis, our Associate Pastor of Faith Formation and Congregational Life, who is joining us today in the absence of Alan Scharouse, who is on vacation trying to get some much needed rest. So Courtney, thank you for joining us today. As we begin our time together, I would call us into a moment of prayer. So please pray with me. God, we thank you for your continued presence in our lives. So many of us are experiencing transitions at this time, transitions for students that are finishing up their school years, many graduating and transitioning off to college or transitioning into careers. Many of us are experiencing different life situations that are changing with health or with jobs. God, I thank you for being with us in all of these situations and for being with us as we optimistically look to the future and hope that we will be able to regain a sense of normalcy in terms of our worship experiences, in terms of our engagement with the community and service in dedication to you. God, in all these things, we ask you to be with us and give us strength and guidance. And in the moments ahead, be with us as we talk about the work and the life of your church. All these things we ask in your Son's name. Amen. The minutes have been prepared for our last meeting from our church clerk, Nancy Colclaser. Those are on file in the church office. And so if you need to refer to those, please get with the church office for access to that information. Turn our attention now to the membership report. And we are pleased to announce several folks that have joined us in the last 2 months. Those individuals include John Tollotson, John Setchfield, Joyce Setchfield, Bryce Rings and Kinsey Rings, and Cindy Kohler. So all those in favor of affirming our new members, I would ask that you would vote online at the link that will be provided under church conference, or you can fill out the paper ballot that is mailed to you in the mail for those that are non-email users. I want to remind you that the virtual affirmation will be available through June 14th, 5 p.m. I'd also like to take a moment for us to remember those that have passed away over the last couple months. Pam Baggett, Wilma Fortune, Carolyn Wicker, Dwight Fickling, and Frank Wilson. We also want to remember the family and friends of Anna Whitlow, who was much beloved by Jack Foxworth, and we continue to remember them in that loss. And even more recently, we remember the family of Jack Eckert, who passed away on June the 10th. Please remember his family. We now turn our attention to the financial report. And for that, we will call on Scott North to provide the report, and also for Jimmy Kessler, our incoming Chair of Finance, to provide an update on the PPP loan.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. So for the month of May, we had probably the lowest number of receipts since the pandemic began of 84,456. Compared to our budget number of 130,250. Last year, we kind of knocked it out of the park, almost 150,000. So when you look at that, it looks like May wasn't too good, but then you look down here at the year to date, almost $600,000 received year to date compared to a budget of 656. Last year was 718,171. So receipts are down this year when compared to budget and last year. But then if you look at disbursements, because of the changes that we've made and things we haven't been able to do so far this year, the disbursements are also down. So expenses are down. So, and expenses are down more than the receipts are. So if you look at the bottom line, which is really important to do, our bottom line is almost $20,000 better than we had planned on being at this point in the year. So a little mixed bag of news there, but bottom line is what's most important. And then another interesting figure here, the weekday school, while these numbers are not final for the year because we still have payroll to account for the last part of May, and we have some other expenses, still compared to last year, same time, it's about a $38,000 improvement over last year. So good news so far. We had projected this year at the end of 2021 for the preschool, May 2021, to be about 25,000. So we're better than that. So overall deficit at this point in the year is better than we had expected it to be. As far as receipts over the last 12 months, that's where we see a drop. That's where we drop below the $1.6 million mark in the last 12 months compared to 1.8 million in the prior last year. So there we have a little bit of a catching up to do the rest of the year, but so far so good as far as what our cash balances are because our expenses have remained low. So right now our operating cash is just a little over $34,000, but we have yet to allocate the PPP money, which was a loan, as everyone knows, in the beginning, but we got that forgiven. And Jimmy will talk a little bit about the allocation process for those funds coming up next. And another significant number change over the prior year is the endowments. And if you look at that endowment line last year, because the pandemic hit and it really hit our investments, we were down, the endowments were down to about 628,000. They have more than recovered. We've also received some contributions to the endowments, and we've changed our investment strategy. And all of those things have worked to put our endowments at the end of May at 911,708. And then one more point I'll just bring up is that I know some of you know about the capital endowment that we have, and we've been trying to get it up to that $500,000 mark, and we're very close. At the end of May, it was 492,000 as part of this 911,000. So we're really encouraged about that, and hopefully we can get over the threshold and then start being able to use some of the investment earnings off of that endowment fund. That concludes my report for the month of May, and now I'll turn it over to Jimmy Kessler.
Thanks, Scott. The update of a PPP loan is as follows. The application for forgiveness of the full loan amount was approved by the SBA. A subgroup from the Finance Committee has identified the uses of the loan in accordance with the PPP requirements. This includes a reimbursement to the general fund for certain direct expenses, such as personnel and other allowable expenses under the PPP guidance. Any remaining surplus has been recommended to further fund church missions. This will be considered by a joint group made up of missions and Finance Committee members later this summer. Back to you, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Jimmy, for those updates. We now turn our attention to hear from Scott Colclasure, the chair of the committee, who is looking for our next associate pastor to missions and outreach. And so at this time, we will hear a special message from Scott on the update of that process.
Hello, everybody. Let me begin by expressing my appreciation for the search committee for the associate pastor for missions and community outreach. In addition to Alan and me, Phil Barbie, Margaret Crawford, Molly Lyle, Catherine Scott Little, Margaret McCracken, and Helen Vaughn are serving. This has been a wonderful group to work with. I can't imagine a more dedicated, representative group of individuals, and I am appreciative of their hard work and efforts. So since I reported last in April, the committee has received a good stack of resumes from candidates interested in this position and responding to the job posting that was on the church's website. We've taken those resumes and have sorted them and come up with a smaller group of individuals from whom we wanted a bit more information. And so we reached out to those folk and sent them a simple questionnaire requiring paragraph answers. Questions like, what is it about this position at First Baptist Greensboro that interests you? Once we received responses, then we studied them a little bit further and decided which individuals do we want to get to know a little bit better. And so we have invited a fairly small group to meet with us for Zoom interviews. And we are in the middle of that interview process. Each interview lasts about 45 minutes or so. When we're done, I suspect toward the end of June, I hope the committee will be able then to come back together and to decide from those Zoom interviews, are there candidates emerging that are so strong, so interested, so committed that we want to invite them to Greensboro. That would be a small number, I expect, but it would give those individuals an opportunity to visit the campus, to meet our staff, and to sit down for more detailed discussions with the committee. That will probably be happening in July, depending on how summer vacations go. So that's where we are right now. I feel that we have made good progress and are doing a good work. And as always, if there is more information that I can help with, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Thanks.
All right, Scott, we thank you for that message from the nominating committee or the search committee on the Associate Pastor to Missions and Outreach. And we look forward to receiving updates in the near future. We now turn our attention to the nominating committee, and we will get a list of nominations for incoming church leadership. And for that, we call on Sharon Barlow, our current chair of the nominating committee, to bring us a special message.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Barlow, and I'm here to share with you the recommendations from the nominating committee. Recommendation for moderator, Becky Starnes. Treasurer, George Scott. Endowment Trust, Andrea Harrell. Recommendation for Finance Committee members, Chuck Fry, Kristen Haynes, Corey McRae, Tony Pettit, and Stephen Cox. And our recommendations for the diaconate: Richard Wiley, Darlene Biffle, Megan Kiesler, Cheryl Angel, Graham Lyles, Mary Petresky, Tammy Miller, Beth Schaefer, Ben Norman, Gail Wager, Joe White, and Ryan Shively. Thank you to the nominating committee for all of their hard work on this report.
All right, Sharon, thank you for that report. Let me remind everyone that approximately 2 weeks from today on the 27th in our church service, we'll have a special called time of church conference to vote on these nominations that were presented today. And so please make every effort to attend that service. There will also be an option to vote online if you're not able to make that service in person. Now call on Brad Wall, our chair of the deacons, to bring us the deacon report. Brad?
Thanks, Matt. At our last church conference, we celebrated our first in-person worship service in over a year. Resurrection Sunday was truly an experience we'd all longed for a period of time that we had no idea would last. Now, 2 months later, we've transitioned once again, and in-person worship services have become the new normal. Our soft openings in May gave us the opportunity to not only test out our reconfigured streaming system, but also find our favorite pews from which we have sat for many years as a family of faith in the worship of God. We were provided with a sense of welcome and comfort as we return to worship services, where our pastoral staff led us in a Worship 101 video blog. We found joy in the voice and songs of our children on Children's Sunday. We celebrated Pentecost Sunday as the fullest version of ourselves to date, both in person and online, noting that the Spirit still moves in each one of our lives individually, but how much more it means when we're all together in one place. We honored our graduates as we remembered the life they've brought to our church, while we're hopeful in the future that they all carry in Senior Sunday this past week. These are but a glimpse of the life of our church that we look forward to sharing in a more fuller and somewhat normal pattern come this fall. A few highlights from the past 2 months that I remember and cherish include the continual virtual offerings of Sunday school for our children each week, the return to junior church for those children 4 years to second grade. If you don't know what a color party is, you should watch the video of our 4th and 5th graders that they put together at their first Merge event of the year. We are ever thankful for Christina and her work in the lives of our children and our young families. Between trivia night, the youth family scavenger hunt, and Senior Sunday, Chris has been busy. They most recently had their summer missions this past week, where they worked alongside youth from College Park Baptist Church with Out of the Garden Project, a ministry partner of FBC. Working at both their warehouse and urban teaching farm, our youth learned about food insecurity right here in our own backyards. Additionally, all of our college ministry graduates received a gift and letter from the church as they were also celebrated. Both Chris and Christina are excited to have familiar faces join in the ministry work, as Joel Reynolds is the summer intern for youth and Megan Barlow for children. Both of these have hit the ground running, planning events to remind our youth and children how much they are known, loved, and needed. Before we meet again, both our youth and children will have also experienced Passport Camp in town here at Greensboro College. The preschool ended an unprecedented year full of successes and achievements under the leadership of Autumn Colbreth, celebrating a moving up week where each child was called out by name and noted for a special characteristic that was seen in she or her lives over the past year by their teachers. With summer days underway, Autumn and her staff look forward to what the next year brings. As we've already noted, our return to worship has been heart-stirring as we've been led by Doug and Terry. Their leadership has re-engaged the deacons in new and innovative ways to be relational with each other and with our congregation. The outdoor time of fellowship has been highlighted by the special music led by our choir. We have also seen the fruits of Baker's leadership during Children's Sunday, and we look forward to his work with the Worship in the Arts Camp later this summer. Courtney's work has continued with the midweek offerings in Adult Sunday School, both online and in person at the outdoor chapel. During the month of May, she also led a time for parents to meet and fellowship during the children's Faith and Formations time. She continues to seek ways to teach and to lead, and we look forward to her leadership this Sunday as we begin a new series entitled Dear Church, as she brings the message. Lastly, since we last met, we said goodbye to Patrick Cardwell. As we celebrated his gifts, we also looked to Jeff Bennett to serve as interim home-based minister. We are so thankful for Jeff's eagerness and engagement in the life of our church. Courtney, is there anything that you would add to all the ways we've lived as a community of faith over the past few months?
It has been wonderful to see all of the goings on here, all of the ways that our programs are still functioning and thriving, and all of the ways that you all have been responding to the steady coming back that we're doing. I am especially grateful for Jeff Bennett right now. I hope you will all give him a pat on the back when you see him. He has really jumped in with both feet to assess the needs of those of our home-based members who could use a visit or a call. And he has really just taken that on with all of his heart. And it's been a joy to watch him in that ministry role. I would invite all church members to let either me know, or Jeff or Alan, any of our pastoral staff, certainly, that you would let us know if you know of anyone, or maybe you yourself are considered a home-based member now. We have learned that over these last 16 or 17 months, our home base list has grown. We now have folks on that list or in our congregation who feel more comfortable remaining at home, perhaps from now on. And we would love for you to let us know if that's you or if that's someone that you love, so that we can make sure that our pastoral staff and Jeff in particular are able to reach out to you and make sure that you have your needs met and you feel loved and cared for by the congregation.
Thanks, Courtney. Other news of business to bring to your attention today includes that committees continue to meet and perform their necessary work. Specifically, finance is meeting and discerning ways to be intentional with church balances, as we've already heard from Jimmy. Building and Grounds has completed tasks recently approved by the congregation, as the new sanctuary roof is complete and drainage issues at the picnic shelter have been corrected. As I noted previously, we have adapted our streaming service with existing equipment, but we do look forward to the completion of the work of a new system slated to be installed and operational later this summer. Carter Trust has approved $16,750 in disbursements to Providence Grove Baptist Church for their Children's Defense Fund Freedom Schools. That's a 6-week summer literacy and enrichment program for approximately 30 children and youth. You may remember, but in 2019, Carter Trust approved $20,000 for the first year of this Freedom School at Providence Baptist Church, and we look forward to the success that this year will bring as well. The nominating committee, as we've heard from Sharon Barlow, is heavily engaged in their work. We are thankful and grateful for the dedication of that team as they seek to fill leadership positions vital to the life of our church. As Sharon noted, nominees have been established for church offices, the diaconate, finance, and endowment trust. We look forward to further communication about these nominees in subsequent publications, and would once again highlight the special called meeting on June 27th for their election. A few other items of note is the work of our bylaw amendment subcommittee. This group, made up of Shannon Childs, Rob Wells, Matt Messick, Janice Newsom, Dave Worsley, Alan Scharouse, and myself, have begun the process to review and integrate our bylaws into this new world with virtual business meetings. We look forward to additional information in the coming months. As we've noted previously, any amendment that's brought before the congregation will be done at an in-person church conference for discussion and vote. I would call special attention to our COVID-19 task force. They continue to meet as needed, although not as regularly as previously done now that the pandemic has begun to lighten. So we've highlighted in numerous and varying engagements experienced over the past few months. I'm grateful for their devotion and immediate response as we've navigated updates from the governor and from the CDC. Additional updates will continue as we move forward as more information is learned and known, but I remain grateful for the members of Task Force: Janice Newsom, Debbie Honeycutt, Seth Hicks, Adam Barnes, Dave Worsley, Doug Vansel, Courtney Willis, and Alan Scharouse. Lastly, I would call special attention to an update on Pastor Scharouse's sabbatical. If you'll remember, last year the church approved a sabbatical for Alan for the summer of 2021 in conjunction with Alan's receipt of the Lilly Endowment's Clergy Renewal Program. As expected, the pandemic has impacted this sabbatical and this trip. In response, Alan and his family look forward to an adapted sabbatical for the summer of 2022. We are grateful for the freedom of the Lilly Endowment and the Clergy Renewal Program during this time. Final specifics of the sabbatical are being coordinated with Alan and the pastoral staff, but we remain excited and look forward to Alan's work focused on the relationship between the church and the city. Matt, with that, I close my deacon report.
Brad, as always, I just want to thank you for all your leadership, especially during the last year. It's been much appreciated, and you've really kept us on target. So thank you again for all your hard work, and please extend that to the diaconate as well. Knowing of no other matters of business to bring before the congregation at this time, I just want to remind everyone that approximately 5 minutes after the close of this church conference, at the link provided under church conference on our website, we'll gather for just a brief meeting on Zoom to answer any questions or comments that you have from this information that was presented to you today. So we look forward to joining you at that time. At this particular moment, I would call on Courtney to bring us final comments and also to adjourn us with a word of prayer. So, Courtney.
Thank you all so much for your hard work, Scott and Matt and Brad and Jimmy and Sharon and Scott. I'm so grateful. As I was moving back into my office over the last few weeks, gradually I've been bringing piles of things that have been in my dining room where I've been parked for the last year and a half back into this space. And just yesterday, I ran across a list that I had written down very, very early in the pandemic. At a deacons meeting, Alan led everyone to list words that described our church, that described who we are and ways that we feel about our church. And some of those words that were on that list were welcoming, creative, trusting, resilient, faithful, and giving. It was a list of probably 40 words, but those are just 6 that stood out to me as words that described our church a year and a half ago, but also describe who we are now and who we will continue to be. And so I want to invite all of you to remain engaged with us, to become more engaged with us as our doors begin to open more broadly, as we are able to gather with one another. I invite you to remember those things that the words you would use to describe who we are as a covenant people together, who we are as a family of faith. What are those words for you? And then come be here and be part of creating a space where those words remain true. The couple of things that are happening that will help us to do that well is that I would remind you to check our church covenant that the task force has kept updating over the course of the last year and a half. Right now, when you come into our building, we do ask that you remain masked if you are in a common hallway or restroom, and also in our sanctuary. Particularly because we are looking out for those who are most vulnerable among us, for those who perhaps are unable to get the vaccine, or for our children in particular who are still getting accessibility to the vaccine. If you are in a small group of just adults, you have the freedom within that group to have a conversation about whether or not you feel comfortable being masked in that time and space. So I just remind you to recheck that covenant just before you come to any of our gatherings so that we can all gather safely for as long as possible. And then the second thing I would invite you to do is to be here, to come here all through the summer. You might be pulled away by wonderful vacations now that we have some more freedom, but when you're here, we would love to see your faces. We would love to see you. We would love to hear how you're doing. And I invite you also, when you are here, reintroduce yourselves to others. It's hard sometimes with masks to remember names and quite tell who people are when you're only seeing their eyes up. So don't be afraid to reintroduce yourself and ask someone else their name. We hope that you will be part of our community even as these summer months go on before the school year starts again in September. And then finally, I would just remind you that we are called to love one another. And one of the ways that we love one another and what love God best is by giving of ourselves. You heard a finance report today that might have kind of set some bells off in your brain. And I want you to remember that that is a snapshot of where we are now, but it is not indicative of who we are necessarily as an entire body. And I want you to remember that we are called to share and give of ourselves, of our resources, of our time freely. And it's when we do that, that we honor God the best. It's when we do that, that we honor one another. So I invite you to give of yourselves in whatever way that God is calling you to. And now, as we close today, I invite you to pray with me. Great God, for this wonderful body of believers, we give you thanks. Help us, O Lord, in the days and weeks and months to come to honor and glorify you in all that we do, in the giving of ourselves, in our presence here in this place and in each other's lives. Help us to love one another and to love you with all our heart, mind, and strength. It is in your name that we pray. Amen. We hope to see you in a few minutes on Zoom, I think 5 minutes from now. So just go ahead and log off here and find the Zoom link, and we will be waiting for you there.